Hi, I'm JP Williams. I'm a mental health coach from Nashville, Tennessee, and you are listening to White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am your first vice president. Joining me today is co-host and White Canes Connect creator, Lisa Bryant. Lisa, how are you today?
Good, David. We have a very special guest today that we have to thank one of our PA Federationists, Michelle McManus, for introducing us to J.P. Williams, who is a mental health and life coach. Really great discussion with him, as people will hear. But you brought up a really good point, David, about how sort of different our guest is.
Yeah, it really felt like, as we were talking with him, hey, we have this guy on, and we're not just talking about blindness.
Yeah.
We're talking about things he does to help people and how his job works. And blindness was just a very small portion of our discussion, as you'll hear. And I just thought that was very interesting to me. I don't know that we've had an episode much like this in the
Yeah,
past.
I agree. It's pretty refreshing. In fact, we talk about how, or JP talks more about how it wasn't so much a barrier, in his getting the training and even what he does as a coach. It's not as much as a barrier as many of careers are. So it's good change.
And as you point out, it is a blind-friendly career. So this
Yeah.
is something to make sure you pay attention to. If you have any kind of interest in helping other folks, this is something that any of us could do, I believe, once you have the training.
So let's listen to our conversation with J.P. Williams.
JP, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, hello there, JP. You
Hey.
came to our attention from one of our federationists who met you at a convention several years ago, and she reached out to David and I, and she said, "You got to have JP Williams on. He's a great guy." I'm not sure if she knows your work, but she just could vouch at least for your personality being very engaging. And of course, we said, why not? And
Hey,
we would
here we are.
love to, we're going to talk about what you were doing, what you're doing now. And I know David has quite a few questions about the profession of being a mental health coach or life coach. So, we'll definitely get into that. But tell us a little bit about you and however much you want to share about your blindness journey, and then we'll get into how you took a career shift.
I was born with retinopathy of prematurity. Spent the first 5 years of my life in Louisville, Kentucky. Ventured on to Dallas, Texas. It's where I spent most of my growing up. And then I'm deeply rooted here in Tennessee. I'm in Nashville now, but I have a lot of roots in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so around teenage years, moved back to Chattanooga. And that's ultimately when I started playing music and majored in music in college, and then spent a lot of time after college on the road as a working singer-songwriter. And so that's kind of the long story short. I'm sure we'll get into more specifics, but I spent a lot of time, most of my life, playing music, and then you are correct that I made a pivot, which
Yeah.
I think is a skill set that I like to talk about, because I think in this day and time we really have to be flexible as far as it's especially in the arts, because the way that music is monetized these days, the more things you can have, more tools you can have in your back pocket to diversify yourself, the better. And that's not just with music, but with any I believe any aspect of the arts. It's an interesting time.
Yeah.
How people are are able to make a living. There's not really a box anymore. You can kind of create your own thing.
Yeah. Multiple streams of revenue.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, David is our serial entrepreneur, so he can
Love it.
he can definitely speak to that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned music
Mhm.
and doing that for quite a bit of time, and so not just playing an instrument, you were actually a songwriter. What was your genre? And I guess tell us now. I guess maybe now we can talk about why you felt compelled to make that pivot.
Yeah, great question. Well, so I moved to Nashville after I lived in the Atlanta area after college. Back up a minute. Yeah, after college, moved to the Atlanta area, went on the road and was successful. I was able to play, gosh, a ton of colleges and
Mm,
just did the whole indie route in the early 2000s. In '06, I just made the dive. I moved to Nashville, made the plunge, and because I was really, really interested in the songwriter path more than the performing aspect of things.
mhm,
And I thought it seemed like a dream job if I could get a gig as a signed staff writer at a music publishing company here in Nashville. That would just be a dream come true. Whatever happened after that is, luck's involved and all those things. But I really wanted to get better at writing songs. And the way to do that
mhm,
is to move to a place where people are really, really great at what they do, because then, you have no choice. You have to hone your craft or you're going to get left behind, so you have
mhm.
to really focus in and I did that. I had the opportunity to do that. I kicked around town after '06 when I moved here to Nashville, kicked around town for several years and then landed a staff writing songwriting job, and that's basically what it is. So publishers here in Nashville will pay you in advance on future royalties in the hopes that you'll write a hit, and you'll become
Mhm,
profitable. And so I was able to do that and got some cuts,
mhm.
but I didn't have the big single until about 2018, and I was part of a hit called Best Shot. And you asked the genre. I was involved mainly in the country genre,
Okay.
and I was able to co-write a song that went up to number one for 3 weeks back in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a really to have that come to pass, because
Yeah.
uh, that's a minority. I mean,
Mhm.
literally, it's like getting struck by lightning,
Mhm.
to write a number one song. And so I wrote it with Jimmie Allen and Josh London, and it was an amazing opportunity. And it was really interesting because I had been in town for a long time and experienced kind of, it's not a linear path.
Mhm.
In the arts, it's not a straight line by any
Right. A
means.
lot of
And
twists and turns.
yes, absolutely. But by the time that happened, there were a lot of changes where I was writing songs at the company. People move on, and so
Mhm.
I was ready to keep growing and challenging myself and uh, learn about new things. And so I had finally, for the first time in my life, put the guitar in the closet. I was like, you know what? I did everything I could do.
Mhm.
I had a lot of fun, but the way that music is being monetized now, I gotta have some other. I got to diversify myself, And so I started working for a large tech company. And about 6 months after I put the guitar in the closet, the song went to number one. So it was a really fun. I love telling that part of the story
Yeah.
because it's like I laid it down finally, and then
Mhm.
something, a miracle happened, I guess you
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
say.
It's like kinda like you unclench your fist a bit and
Exactly.
just receive instead
Yeah.
of strive.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
So but in the midst of working for that large tech company, I was assigned a coach. Uh, it was a health benefit that my employer offered
Mhm.
myself and other people on our team. And this coach that I was working with, uh, I had several sessions with him and just thought, wow, what a cool path this would
Mhm.
be. Um, because I've heard about therapy and I've heard about things of that nature. The coaching world, became popular kind of in the last 30 years, especially. I think it gained a lot of ground, I would say, in the last 15, 20 years. But I just thought, wow, what a fun, work with people on their goals. It's very much like present moment, future focused approach. And so I was assigned a coach, and I asked that individual, how did you get into this? And he told me, the training institute that he attended. And along with COVID happening, uh, the music business kind of shut down for about a year and a half. And so in the midst of that, I went and attended a training program online, and I was able to keep my job and keep working and pay the bills, while I was getting certified. But a lot, you have to invest in yourself. It's kind of like going back to school, basically that's what it is. But so, it was a blessing that number one song happened, because I was able to use part of the money that came in from that to create a bridge for myself, and so now I work for a company called Lyra Health. I've been there for over 2.5 years now, and been able to coach people inside, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies from all over the country, and still do the music thing on the side when I want to do it. It's just now it's just joy and fulfillment for me. So it's not like I'm gritting my teeth trying to. It's not a grind like it used to be for me. But I love having kind of best of both worlds. It's a whole lot of fun. So
let's talk about the training a little bit. That was something that's an online thing.
Yeah, I went to the Coactive Training Institute, and they're certified through the International Coach Federation. And so basically what the International Coach Federation, they've been around for a while, but it's an unregulated path in a lot of ways. And that was something that I didn't really want to be a part of. I wanted to be accredited, or have a certification. You're dealing with people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get the appropriate training. So the Training Institute, Coactive Training Institute that I attended, they've been around since the mid '90s, so a long time. And like I said, they're certified through the International Coach Federation. So I was able to get all that done. And a lot of these platforms that hire coaches like to know that you're certified through ICF. And so just for people out there that are interested in the path, that's how it can benefit. And I think it's great. If you can have your own, you can start your own thing, which I did that for a while. I had my private practice, which then led me to start to work for an actual platform. But it's a full-time job with benefits and things of that nature. So it's really gratifying. I've just had a really great time.
How long is the training? How long does that go?
So I started, I think all told, it was about a year, close to 2 years, because you go through the Training Institute, and then you have to start your private practice. They encourage you to start, creating materials and putting yourself out there online, and to go ahead and start getting clients, while you're going through the classes that they provide. So that's one thing that I really liked about it, because in order to get certified, you've got to put yourself out there and just, jump in and learn how to swim, basically.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the certification. I would guess that the average person who is seeking some sort of coaching help doesn't really know what to look for in terms of certification. So you kind of talked about that, but because I just feel like there's so many people sort of hanging up their own shingle and becoming life coach, just like the whole nutritionist field. Everyone's a nutritionist, but I remember I was in another Zoom, and this woman was talking about what to look for in a nutritionist, and you really want to look more for a dietitian. And I'm thinking that this field is also like that. So for people who might want services, coaching services, what should be maybe some red flags, or just what are the things that they should look for? Like, is your certification, is that sort of like the 18?
Yeah, well, yeah, ICF. If you can see someone who's got the you can see the ICF credential.
Okay.
Say on their LinkedIn, perhaps, or wherever you're looking. I think it's wise, although there are some wonderful, great coaches who have really successful businesses that did not attend, an accredited training program, and I've actually known therapists that do both. They do coaching and therapy, and some therapists that have transitioned fully into coaching. I think a lot of that is because I can practice wherever I want. I don't have to be licensed in a particular state, So, like, if I live in Tennessee and I'm licensed in Tennessee, when I move to, let's say, New York City or something from Nashville, I have to get licensed in that state. I assume that's how it works. But with coaching and ICF, basically, I'm able to, and especially from a virtual standpoint, I'm able to coach people all over the country,
Yeah.
And also the sensitivity too of knowing what the difference is, the distinction between coaching and therapy. I think is wise in that, to know the difference, and that, there are some boundary lines for coaches not to get into a therapy, and more topics that would be better served by a therapist.
And what is that distinction? Does therapy involve medication more so than
Well,
coaching?
yeah. They can prescribe medication. There's a lot of things, and also too when it's more trauma based. I mean, there's trauma informed coaching, but there are trauma therapists who are definitely more skilled. When something's a little more beneath the hood, and sometimes people do both. They'll have a coach and a therapist at the same time, whereas the coach will work with the client on goals and sort of getting outside the head and engaging in those meaningful activities that they enjoy, but also work with a therapist at the same time to kind of work on and navigate, especially if there have been traumatic situations that someone's dealing with in their past. But I will say the company I work for currently, so they come in to me or someone on my team if they have mild to moderate scores, and that we do assessments for this reason. And then if they're more severe, if their scores are more severe, then I help hand off to a therapist at the company I currently work for.
I'm glad you mentioned some of the terminology because I found myself referring to you interchangeably as a life coach, mental health coach. Is
Mm-hmm.
there a distinction between those two? Or was there a lot of overlap?
Well,
How should people
yeah.
really, what's the proper definition of each?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think so the mental health component, I work with therapists all the time at the company I work for, who develop all the tools, and it's almost like I've gotten paid the last over 2.5 years to get an education in psychology, because it's like I work with these social workers and therapists who create a lot of the tools, and so when people come in, let's say, and their scores are more mild, they'll get sent to me, and we work on things like acceptance and self-compassion and values and communication, all these different things, and just goals in general. But the mental health component was a nice surprise to me because I thought it was going to be a lot more surface level life coach
Right.
kind of stuff, which is great. But it's been awesome to kind of have the best of both worlds, where I still get to work with people on their goals and their values, but also we do work together on some heavy stuff a lot of times, and I'm able to do that in a professional manner. And then if I see that maybe there are some deeper challenges happening, um, I will consult with a therapist at the company I work for and tell them, let them know what's going on with that particular client. And they'll say, I think you're good to keep going, or yeah, I think this would definitely be better served with a therapist. So we're very sensitive about that, and also have the boundary lines that are very clear.
So it's a different or a deeper layer, I guess. Is that a good way to
Yeah, I might
describe the
say that.
mental health part?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's right in between life coaching and therapy, if that makes sense.
Do you go out and still get your own folks, or does this company basically funnel folks to you that you then help?
They funnel folks to me. And that's been a nice aspect of working for a company versus putting myself out there online,
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
you have to talk to your friends and family. You have to start where you're planted, right? And so,
Mhm.
do you know of anyone who's looking to yada yada? And so I can keep work at work, and
Mhm.
my personal life is what it is, and I don't have to necessarily put myself out there. Although on my website I do, and so so occasionally someone will reach out to me, but I keep work at work because I usually, as far as sessions are concerned, I usually have 30 to 32 sessions a week. And
Mm.
so, I'm kind of after work, I want to go play some music, write some songs, do
Mhm.
some other things, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
And how long are the sessions usually?
45 minutes.
You were talking about part of the certification process included you first launching out on your own. So I did read a bit about, and you mentioned earlier about some of these companies that you've been privileged enough to provide services for. Did that come as you were launching your own, or was that, since you've been with this company?
Since I've been with this company.
And tell us about
Yeah.
that. Like, what sort of services were they asking of you?
We coach people in the medical field, in the financial field, but then there's a lot of people inside these large tech companies. And I think it's just long-term mental health awareness for their employees. And they've seen the evidence, that when people have this as a benefit, uh, it enhances productivity.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm kind of venturing off a little bit, but back to the blindness aspect of things, that has been such a benefit to
Mhm.
this path, because what employers do is they offer the platform. The employee at this particular company will go into the platform and fill out, what it is that they're going through and what they're looking for, and then they are fed several providers to peruse and take a look at and choose from.
Right.
And I'm very transparent about being completely blind.
Mhm.
And it's been on more than one occasion. I'll ask, what made you choose my profile? And they'll say, well, I saw that you were blind, and obviously you've been through challenges, and you're navigating those challenges, and I want to know how to tap into that.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool to have a path where being blind has actually been a benefit. It makes people kind of lean in.
There's a term for that, right? Is that trauma informed? Is that or trauma? What?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, trauma informed, or
Mhm.
just, my disability in this context, I think for people is very human. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes people are, because we're on camera, and they like the fact, some people don't like to be on camera,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
there's benefits to that. But that was kind of a surprise. I was like, wow, that's really cool. That something that from an outsider's perspective somebody might see as a challenge.
Yeah.
I've been blind pretty much 40 years now. I'm almost 50 years old. So,
Mhm.
I don't think about it, but other people, it's a new experience, and they see it inside the context of mental health or coaching as like, wow, okay, this is, obviously his challenge is very noticeable, and uh, people lean in and they
Mhm.
gravitate towards it.
Let's talk about how a client gets started with you. I just kind of skimmed some of the blogs, and I saw there was one, I think you called it the three key coaching questions. And I'm thinking that those are sort of where you might start general. Of course, each, person's the approach to each person will be different, but just in general, how do you start with someone? Like what do you kind of start with? The assessment, I guess, process would be the first step, right?
Yeah, so I might do it a little differently if it's a private client, but on the platform, which is what I do mainly most of the time,
Mhm.
setting the agenda is always key. There are logistics that I cover. Sessions can be recorded if the client is okay with that. We always ask for consent. Um, uh, Things, where are you at? What do you want? Where are you going? Things of that nature. And it's been really fascinating to me learning about powerful questions and how, you know, the right question literally can change the trajectory of someone's life. It can get them curious about what direction that they want to head in. And I never realized the importance or how powerful the right question could be until I entered this field.
Mm.
But I've seen it in a lot of people where, I've seen people get out of relationships, uproot their lives. And then I've seen people, those would be like the large changes, but then also it's the smaller ones as well, right? It's the picking up maybe a hobby that they laid down that just, they forgot about how meaningful it was to them. But, really tapping into those core values. And I always say it's kind of like getting someone back to where they were in essence, where they were before the world got its hands on them. Because the world, and also too, we hear these things are kind of like little downloads, and they can be incorrect and they can kind of get us off course. So if we can stop and get present and ask ourselves, what do I want? What's important to me? As simple as that sounds, we don't do it a lot of the time. We're sort of on autopilot.
Yeah.
So as far as like setting the agenda, I always ask clients, what is your topic and what would you like to get out of our time together today? And just those two questions alone can be helpful as far as just setting the tone and getting a trajectory in mind. If we veer off, that's fine, but some kind of direction is helpful for sure.
And how many sessions do you usually have with someone until they say, "Oh, I am so good now. Thanks very much. I'm moving on."
Yeah.
How does that work, and how often do you meet with folks?
Usually weekly or biweekly. And then it runs the gamut. I can meet with somebody 3 sessions and they just feel better and they're sort of on the other side of something that they were going through mentally, and they're ready to complete our time together. I've had people, depending on their benefit, they hang in there for 20 sessions, and you really get to know people on a different level. And it's wild because when you do 20 sessions with people and say you're meeting weekly or bi-weekly, that's 5, maybe 6 months that and a lot of changes in life can happen within that length of time. So I've sort of walked with people through all kinds of different changes of seasons, relocations and having kids or going through surgeries, all kinds of stuff. It's really been so gratifying. And I always tell people too, if you're on social media and, we call it doom scrolling, that we all can do. And it's understandable because we're going through some challenging times right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, when you meet with a certain number of people and from all different races and genders and economic, religious backgrounds, we're all just human. We're all trying to make sense of the world. And I'm telling you, 99% of the people I've met with have just been so inspiring to me. And I'm just like, we're going to be all right. We're going to be okay.
After David and I doing this podcast for, I think, 3 years now, we're always in each other's head because that was going to be my question about, I know this can be, there's no okay, the services that someone will need or want from you may very well be finite depending on what, the insurance coverage looks like. But are there cases where, all right, the goal is very specific, so we reach the goal and you kind of send them off with their blessing, or do you largely leave that up to the client?
Yeah.
And I
question.
wonder, have you ever found situations where maybe there's a reluctance, maybe the attachment has gotten beyond helpful,
Hmm.
and they might need to be forced out of the nest.
Going back to the training institute I attended, one of the main reasons I signed on to walk through their program is because their belief is that everyone is creative, resourceful, and whole.
Mhm.
And so I'm not there to solve anyone's problem.
Okay.
I'm talking about coaching
Mhm.
specifically. They do that, hopefully space, some time, listening, modalities,
Mhm.
tools, practices help them find the answer that they already know.
Mhm.
Um, but I definitely, yeah, there is a true boundary. And I think that comes back to being blind. We all know those types of, and this is one of the reasons why I got into this field, because I was so curious as to why certain relationships can be incredibly toxic when someone is over helping.
Mhm. Mhm.
It never goes well,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
least it hasn't for me. And
Mhm.
so I always think of, I always coach from a place of, man, give me a cane, show me how to get there, and then
Mhm.
get out of the way, right?
Right. Right.
Versus, oh, here's my elbow, and I'm going to walk you to work every day. That's not
Mhm.
going to help me.
Right.
But that mindset of, man, this is a creative person, a resourceful person, and a whole person. I mean, as someone with a disability, I know when those relationships, when they can be toxic, and I know when they can be healthy. And a lot of that has to do with boundary lines,
Mhm.
and if someone is trying to get something from me, as far as like, people can feel benevolent at times, and
Mhm.
that's the basis of the dynamic of the relationship, and is them feeling like a helper. And a lot of those relationships were when I was, younger. But you learn, as an adult, it's like, wow, that is so not healthy in anything I want to be a part of. And so that's really how I come into my sessions. It's like, man, you know how to make this happen. You just need to slow down a minute and think this through.
And I think it also sounds like, again, this is so individual,
Yes.
and it's there's no, like, and I'm glad there isn't a cookie cutter approach, because we
Yeah.
probably have a lot of people out there still not very well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it will be very dependent on each situation. You know what I'm curious about? You mentioned earlier um how you're still doing the music, and I'm thinking that's not only something that you still love, but it also might provide an outlet. Is that how you sort of unpacked from all of this sort of heaviness?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, music still to this day. I mean, I'll go to a bonfire. I went to a bonfire recently and sat around with some guys, and we just pulled out our guitars, and
Yeah.
um, I'm the only blind person there, but instantly we
Mhm.
start playing tunes. No one, it just walls just go down.
Levels, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, levels the
it's such
playing
a good
field.
common ground
Mhm,
tool that I have in my back pocket that I'll
mhm,
be able to use the rest of my life,
mhm,
and still play out. When it's quality, and when I can make it work. But yeah, I mean, I get to do that. I get to show up with other songwriters, and
mhm,
sometimes very successful songwriters here in town still today, and swap tunes. And it's wow. I mean, if that's all it ever is for me moving forward, that's still pretty huge.
mhm,
But it helps me relate to people. And also too, yeah, when I've been going through something when I was younger, much younger, if it was a challenging time, man, you write a song about it, and it's like a friend that's not going anywhere.
yeah.
Music is always there.
I'm just curious as to a typical work week.
Hmm.
You mentioned you can talk to folks all over the country. Do you work a typical 9 to 5, or are you basically scheduling as your clients are available? Maybe you've got a few folks out on the West Coast, some on the East
Sure.
Coast, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually see clients, if I'm getting specific here, between 8 and noon, 8 in the morning to noon, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then I'll do some administrative activities following up with clients. I also have my own trainings that I am required to complete as an employee, and they want my growth to continue.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it really is a full. day's work, but you'll get a lot of last minute reschedules and
Mhm.
things of that nature. So it all kind of, I tell people, yeah, 32 sessions a week. They're like, oh man, that's a lot. And I thought the same way when I signed on, but it's like a muscle, you
Yeah,
definitely build up that muscle and it's really not,
yeah.
it's not overwhelming.
Talk about some success stories, and I know you can't go into very graphic
Yeah,
detail
sure.
because that might be a little too much revealing, but I'd love to hear some cases that really like said to you, "This is why I do this."
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. There's, yeah, I have to be somewhat careful, but yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
yes, I understand.
there again, like I've had people who there's on more than one occasion, someone who might live in like a large home and they're at this new season of life and they need to start, you know, the the kids have moved away
Mhm,
and so literally, I mean, I've been with them while they uprooted their lives and made significant changes. And we're all kind of holding on to the past a lot of times. And
yeah.
so it's so scary to step into that unknown. But when you see people do that, it's very gratifying.
Mhm,
When you see people, because it takes a lot of courage to step into something new.
mhm,
And whether it be where you live or what you do for a living. So I would say it's a lot of those type of situations when people are in toxic relationships, and they get out of them. It's like, wow, that's powerful. But it's never a sense of like, look what I did. And that's what's so cool about it. I always remind the client, I'm like, you did the work. You showed up, you did this. I provided some tools, but it's kind of like going to see a personal trainer. If they lay down and do the bench presses for you,
right.
you're not getting any stronger. You
Darn.
have to do the work. But yeah, so again, another just the strength of human beings. It
Mhm,
just baffles me all the time. What how brave people are and what they're going through and man, a lot of things around parenting as well. It's the toughest gig in the world. And what parents deal with and seeing them navigate those things and improve their well-being and which improves then how they show up for their child or children. That's gratifying. And
have you had many cases where they've sort of reported back, after some time of, separating officially from you? Do you get sort of like follow-up, any kind of
sure.
follow-up correspondence or communication?
Yeah, so I've recently coached someone. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, but
Mhm.
I know how to coach people through different seasons. And this one gentleman, it was his second time taking the bar exam, or no, excuse me, third time taking the bar exam,
Oh, wow.
and he passed, and was able to, message me and say, hey, I passed. And
Uh-huh.
people who've been laid off and they're looking for a job, and so you're walking with them through that process of trying to get a new job, and then they message you back and say, "Hey, I'm ready to complete my time. I just got this new role that I'm excited about." So and then that's very rewarding as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, people do on occasion. They'll let me know how they're
Yeah.
they'll update me.
If somebody is interested, first step to go and find a place like you did to get training and get certified and
Yeah.
also speak on the actual training itself. Is it live? Are you watching videos? How's that all work out?
Yeah, so I think you can go to if you Google search International Coaching Federation or Coach Federation, they'll have a list of accredited programs that are out there, the training institutes that you can attend. The training institute that I attended, it was it was all virtual, but I was in a cohort group, and so there were several of five or six of us, and we would practice each skill, I think, per week. I think there was a different skill of active listening or values, things of that nature. So, and they have pre-recorded courses, modules that you walk through and you complete. But as far as an accessibility standpoint, the Coactive Training Institute where I attended were very gracious and open. If there was some kind of challenge with my screen reader or a third-party
Mm-hmm.
application. They would make corrections and work with me, and the instructors were really great as well.
The accessibility of the materials was my next
Sure.
question. Now, with the cohort, did you folks meet at the same time? Okay, Tuesday at 3:00, we're going to meet, or
Yes.
something like that. Okay.
Yeah, and they arrange all that. So they'll say, for instance, and every place you attend is different, but the
Right.
way they did it where I attended, they would say we're going to meet every Wednesday night at this appointed time, and then you would have breakouts and you would practice the skills together. It's kind of cool because that training, that virtual training, actually was really helpful when I uh, was hired by the platform because there again you're virtually on camera with people, and so it was just kind of like you ended the program and stepped right into the platform that I work for, and it was sort of seamless, like, oh, this is very familiar.
How did folks in that cohort, when they found out that you were blind, how did they react, and did that change anything in the way they interacted with you?
I don't think it did really. From what I recall, no. I think it was pretty simple to. It wasn't really a thing. I mean, I would definitely, if I had a new instructor, I would just email them the day before and make them aware, that I'm going to be in the class, and to please, maybe if there's things that are more picture driven, to describe things. But it was very easy. It really my experience was very positive.
So in general, it seems that this field, coaching in general, is something that kind of works really well with someone who is blind, because there's not a whole lot, unless you're trying to read somebody's body language, you're pretty good with being able to speak and listen and continue to help a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I
The
have not.
blind-friendly career.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm serious, and I didn't know that going into it, but sincerely, you get you get a lot out of the rhythm of someone's speech, how they're breathing. You can hear a lot. You can hear, even obviously, when someone smiles, or when people get emotional, so it's really a lot of listening,
Mhm.
and it seems to have it hasn't held me back,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Um, and to this day, the company I work for, I'll have to let them know, hey, this particular training, could you change this feature so I can complete it? Yada yada.
Mm.
I mean, it does. And when they make changes to the platform, obviously, I have to send them emails. It's that kind of thing continues, and it always will be there for blind people when you're working for a company and it's third party, and you just got to speak up for yourself and advocate and let them know. And luckily, they're very receptive and want to be as accommodating as humanly possible to make things accessible.
Right. And with anything that's technology driven, one upgrade can take something from being completely accessible to not
Yes.
being able to work for someone. And that is a frustrating
Well,
point that everybody goes through, whether you're in your field or any field. You might just be
yes.
using an app playing fantasy sports, and boom, all of a sudden, is my guy in or out? What's going on? So yeah,
Get
so
it.
I mean, that is one of the frustrations that I think we all deal with.
Absolutely. It's almost sometimes like you have two jobs in one.
They say, we are the ultimate problem solvers, like
Yes,
that's just kind of
that's so
part of
true.
our life.
We've had to be, right? We've
Mhm,
had to find
mhm.
those workarounds. And
Yeah.
and I kind of enjoy that, but it also can be we're all human, right? And some days I call them bad blind days, where it's like I just
Yeah.
want to call it, wake up tomorrow and try
Yeah, yeah. Call the whole thing
again.
off.
Yeah. It feels like
I
when it rains it pours sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, have you had any blind clients?
Yes, I've had a couple, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, one for quite some time, and
Okay.
another for was very brief. But yeah,
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
and I know that other people, blind clients who work at other companies, have signed on and with other
mhm,
coaches, and so yeah.
mhm. So, we want to make sure people are very clear about how you could help them. So maybe now you can just kind of specify again, what sort of situations you can walk people through, whether it's career decisions, relationships, and also your contact information. I noticed also you had a newsletter that people can sign up for. I don't know if that might be if somebody's just sort of wanting to test the waters, like, you know what, I could use someone to talk to, but do I really want to commit to, certain amount of sessions? Just maybe just talk now about what you can help people through.
So I think career transition is a big one.
Okay.
I think flexibility these days is huge. And not just career transition, but just life. Life has seasons
Yeah.
to it, and sometimes we want to hang on to an old season
Mhm.
when maybe it's time to let that go, or maybe something that someone has done for a long time isn't serving them anymore. Industries change, and
Yeah.
and myself, I've been through that. Where the music industry changed
Mhm.
dramatically, and when's the last time you bought a song?
Right. Right.
The stream songs. You don't buy songs anymore. So,
Mhm.
so you gotta be awake and aware
Mhm.
when things are changing. And so, yeah, I think that the tool of mindfulness can help. Different than that doesn't mean just sitting on a floor with some meditative music. And playing music is meditative.
Yeah.
Some people like to cook. Some people even exercise can be
Mhm.
mindful. So,
Mhm.
and like I said, it's kind of getting out of our heads and into our lives,
Mhm.
because we can ruminate. I know I can,
Oh,
where
yeah. Oh,
thoughts
yeah.
become very
That's my
circular.
that's my second job.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too, right? And so kind of working with people through the tool of acceptance, how could radical acceptance improve your life? And what if these thoughts that I always say we can become addicted to these thoughts because
Yeah.
it's all we know, right? And so what if those thoughts forgot to happen just for the rest of the day? What would life be like, and
Mhm.
stepping into curiosity. But parenting,
Mhm.
I've been able to work with parents on on a lot of different skills. Like I mentioned, careers,
Mhm.
relationships, people who are um, and want to work mainly more on external goals like fitness goals. I'm not a trainer by any means, but we can work together and we can collaborate. If there's a habit that someone would like to lay down for a
Mhm.
while,
Mhm.
I've done quite a bit of that in my thousands of hours. So and yeah, you can go to jpwilliams.net. And I do free discovery sessions. So if somebody is just interested and would like to have a conversation, I
Mm.
do free
Okay.
discovery, 15-minute sessions to see if it's a good fit, because if
Right.
it's not a good fit, then, I want people to move on and get the best care that they can find. And so if it's not with me, I'll definitely assist people in maybe talking to someone else.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, that's sort of I guess, long and short of it.
JP, you seem like you are enjoying the best of both worlds, so congratulations,
Uh,
on being able to still have that music going, and wow, I don't know when I have last spoken with someone who got exactly what they wanted, and then still was able to shift after that without, um, too much sort of longing to keep it going, like, you were able to separate help in a healthy way, and you haven't really separated because 'cause you're still, you're still sort of involved, but
yeah, pivoting is different than giving up.
yeah,
It's okay
exactly,
to
exactly.
pivot in
Yeah,
life. But
yeah.
no, I will say it's been a journey,
Mhm.
and it's been challenging sometimes,
Yeah,
There again, acceptance, when things are
yeah.
different and I'm different. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a journey for all of us when we're moving on to another chapter in life.
Right.
But we do have the capacity to adapt. We've done it as blind people. We've got a PhD in
Mhm.
adapting and
Yeah.
Is there anything that maybe we didn't ask you you'd like to touch on?
Well, no, David, Lisa, this has just been awesome. It's great to just hang with y'all and meet you. And thanks for having me on. And it's an absolute pleasure to speak with you for the last, I guess, 45 minutes or so.
Thanks again to JP for coming on and talking about his career path, which, Lisa, it just sounds like something that most of us can do. and he still has that side hustle that sounds like it also makes a little money for him with the music side of things. So he's got everything that he could really want, I think.
Yeah, and not only that, I think his, sort of breaking down what he does, the level of service or coaching or assistance, whatever however you wanna call it, the level that he provides, that helped me, and maybe other people out there like, "Well, what's a life coach?" Mental health, that's a term we're hearing a lot about these days, but life coaching, I think, to me at least, seemed vague, so I was just glad to hear him sort of break down what that actually means and the difference between when it may require more extensive help, and that's when the therapist will come in. But I was just encouraged by not only how he's managed to find this career path that seems to work very well for him, and he seems like he's happy in it, but I think it also helps those of us that may consider, like, how can this person help me? And you don't have to make a lifetime commitment. Your sessions can be as long or as short as you would like them to be.
Absolutely. And that's something, as he was talking, I think of a podcast that I listen to. I don't listen all the time because this guy creates content 5 or 6 days a week, and he treats that like therapy. He basically
Mm.
handles his business by talking things out, and he records them and
Mhm.
then releases them as podcast
Oh,
episodes.
okay.
So it's he'll have a specific topic like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my email marketing plan, and I'm going to do this, and he'll just talk it out in 20 minutes, a half an hour, whatever it might be. And then it is helpful to folks because everybody's basically listening. It's like a therapy session because he said, "Oh, this is how this guy did it, and it's going to
Mhm.
work, and it's working for him," or whatever the case may be. And with JP, yes, it's something. He's very easy to talk to, and that is one thing that I really couldn't get over. It's very calming. I just felt
Yeah.
very almost like
Yeah.
we were in a session talking with him,
Yeah.
and it was just very nice to speak to him.
Make sure you check out JP's newsletter. That is a good place to start. And his website, there's some really interesting articles there too that might be helpful. And as he said, the assessment session is free.
Yes, and so we'll have the links down below in the show notes so you can get over to his website and check him out.
If you do have something coming up, make sure you contact us. One way to do that is to email us at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com.
You could also reach out via phone 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes to leave your message, and please do leave your name and town. If something happened at convention that you really loved or you really hated, you went to a place and had the best beignet ever, or you went and it was the worst one ever, we want to hear. Again, 267-338-4495. Please reach out if you have questions, comments, show ideas as well, but also tell us some convention stories if you'd like. Again,
Yeah.
267-338-4495.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that. So thanks again for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Take care.